yourself a cold one.
They strike 'em, huh?
And listen to Ross Tucker break down the top college prospects on another tasty edition of The College Draft.
Yeah, it's Daddy Soda time here on the College Draft Podcast, presented, of course, as always, by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. I did have a couple Daddy Sodas last night. Hadn't had them in a week, but when I got back from the Eagles game, I wanted to have a couple watching the second half of that glorious Chiefs-Bills game. You know, it's not the beers, Emory, that's the problem for me. It's that I then had like 2 bowls of ice cream after the beers, which really gets me. I don't even know. It's my mother-in-law got, it's like peanut butter bumble or something. I don't even know what it was. Dude, I threw some pretzels in there. I threw some almonds in there. It was like a delicious concoction. It was like a homemade blizzard. I made like a homemade blizzard. 2 double IPAs. Game's over. I'm mad that the Bills lost because I love the Bills, so I eat my sorrows away. Anyway, should probably introduce him. He's the man. I mean this in all sincerity, okay? If you think that you know someone that puts more time and effort in to the draft process than my guy, Emory Hunt, please let me know. Please identify that person, and then I'll ask Emory if they go to all the events like Emory does. I mean, the guy goes to CFL All-Star games. The guy watches leagues in Europe I've never even heard of and like has scouting reports on the guy. It is unbelievable. You got to check him out on social media. He's at FBallGamePlan on X. I guess I'm just going to give in and call it X now. I don't know. I can't believe a guy paid $40 billion for something and then changed the branding that they had built up for 15 years. Just whatever. Football Game Plan on YouTube, and then footballgameplan.com/2025 draft guide. Cannot emphasize this enough. Not only do I get it, I actually get it for other people now. One of my best friends around here, his son is like so into it. I get Emory's draft guide for him because he loves it. Footballgameplan.com/2025 draft guide. Shout out Ben Bernstein. You're getting one again this year, Ben. All right. I should have probably mentioned my name's Ross Tucker. I was very focused on the Daddy Soda time. I was on the sidelines for the Eagles and Commanders yesterday, which that's how we're going to start, by the way. I got a bunch of broadcasting gigs. I think most of you know that now. I love it if you check me out on social media at Ross Tucker NFL. Give me a follow. If you can rate and review this show, that goes a long way for us. You can also follow at Ross Tucker Pod. And more people. We're almost at 20,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. I would love to push that over the top before the Super Bowl. YouTube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. I'm going to start to mention this on the other shows. That would be awesome if you guys can help us get there. Not only can you watch the full episodes of these shows, but you can see the highlight clips for those of you that might not be that prolific on social media. It was a long time ago now, Emory. It was a week ago. But because we typically record this show on Monday, we didn't really talk about the national championship game. Probably won't spend that much time on it because I'm more interested in what you've seen on the All-Star game circuit. I think you're at the Shrine practices, going to the Senior Bowl soon, or vice versa. We'll get to that in a little bit. But I also want to get to the NFL scouting lessons from the weekend. I feel like these are low-key 2 of my favorite shows when you're doing the All-Star game circuit at the same time as these playoff games, because it's like, okay, he's there seeing these guys. What do we need to be looking for that's very clear from the actual games that matter in the playoffs? Let's start, though, with any takeaways, Emory, that you had in that national championship game last Monday night.
Notre Dame ran out of gas, and we saw them not try to run the football outside of the first drive. I thought, Price should have been given an opportunity to try to help them run the football. They barely gave him the rock. We know Love wasn't 100%. And so outside of that, asking Notre Dame to throw the football consistently wasn't a part of their game throughout the course of the season, let alone in this national championship game. So great to Ohio State for adjusting outside of that first drive or after that first drive. And then you saw the talent take over. Every one of their best players made a play. And even when Notre Dame fought back in that ball game, it was the named players that we talked about leading into the game. Everybody on offense and defense made a play to secure that national championship.
It's a really good point. It's funny. That's actually one of the takeaways from, the playoff games yesterday. We talk a lot about intangibles, and I think that they matter, and coaching and all those things, but Ohio State just had much better players than Notre Dame. I mean that was like clear. And I'll say this too: the Eagles have much better players than the Commanders. Now the Commanders didn't give themselves much of a chance with fumbling or 3 times, getting the ball punched out. The interception at the end didn't really matter. But Jaden Daniels, I thought still played pretty darn well again. But when the other team has better players than you at almost every position, that is a lot to overcome. That's asking a lot. I watch, you and I, Emory and I, we do high school games, we do college games. The team with the better players wins like a very high percentage of time, okay? That's why we do the scouting. That's why we try to do all the scouting stuff, because it matters. Curious, Emory, a couple guys jumped out to me, but in particular, I want to get your breakdown of both Riley Leonard and Will Howard as NFL prospects. We can do it one at a time because they're both out of eligibility, right? Like they're both done. So I never heard anybody talking about Will Howard like as a prospect at all. And now people are saying top 100 pick, maybe top 50 pick, second or third round. Okay. I guess I'm a little bit, I don't remember even like a month ago people talking about him. And he did just have an awesome month. And maybe this is like a Cardell Jones thing, where it was like all of a sudden Cardell Jones had that glorious month. But I don't know, like you tell me, Emory, you're the guy that does this for a living. Was that month enough? Where was Will Howard before this month in your mind? And where is he now?
He was a PFA before this month, before this season, and now he is a day 3 pick. I still think he's a 5th, 6th rounder, which is fine because you have to really strengthen your QB too. And we'll talk about scouting lessons in a moment. But when you look at guys like Will Howard and Riley Leonard, but let's say Will Howard, what he did in this month leading them to a national championship game, he did a great job in rising to the occasion. He didn't play particularly great all regular season, but in the postseason, when the games matter the most, win or go home, he locked in and played excellent and made some great throws, touch throws, timing, anticipation, accuracy, all of those things. So to me, that's how you want guys like that on your team that has experience or that have experience in playing these high leverage situations and are able to excel. So with that being a backdrop, him being a QB2 on an NFL roster, I'm completely fine with. I can see him as a Davis Mills, which is perfect for Houston and how he's been able to play. He got some starts. I can see Will Howard doing the same thing, maybe as a spot starter, 3 to 4 games till your starter gets back. But you have a guy that can handle the moment, that can play up to the level and do his job and help keep your offense and your team on pace.
I think at times he almost reminds me of like a Nate Sudfeld, like that type of guy, that can play for a while. It's interesting because this is one of my major NFL scouting takeaways, Emory, is quarterbacks that have some mobility. And Will Howard doesn't have like a ton of mobility, but he has some. He can get you some first downs if it's wild. He's not Jaden Daniels or Lamar Jackson or like one of those guys or Kyler Murray, but he can run. He can run a little bit. And so can Riley Leonard. And, man, you watch those games on Sunday, Emory, It's really nice. Though I always say those are like bonus first downs or bonus touchdowns that you didn't get within the scheme. What about, I got one other thing from the national championship game, but what about Riley Leonard?
To me, he's more of a QB3 because the passing isn't just where you want it to be to trust him to go out there for a full, 16, 17 game season as your starter. But let's say, and I hate the term, you put him in a package because he's not, Taysom Hill in terms of like explosive athlete. But if we're in a short yardage goal line situation and QB power is the go-to, that's where Riley Leonard can help enhance your offense and add another element to it, because he seems to be money on QB power. It seems like when it's 4th and 1 or 3rd and 2, you trust Riley Leonard with the ball in his hands. Now, until he can continue to progress as a passer, that's where he's going to have to grow, which is why I think he should probably go to the UFL, play a season, and just be that passer and then showcase that skill versus pro talent and then try his hand at the NFL. That's a little bit too optimistic and too Pollyanna, in my opinion, for it to actually happen. But as an NFL player, there's value for him in being a short yardage goal line QB.
I agree. He just does not throw it consistently well enough. He makes some good throws,
Right.
but not consistently well enough. Love him. I wish you could there's certain guys I wish they could be a college quarterback forever. I love watching them. Unfortunately, we have although now they might even give guys an extra year anyway. I mean, whatever. Donovan Jackson is the other guy that jumped out to me, Emory. This guy was thought to be a high-level guard. They had to bump him out to left tackle when Josh Simmons, who might be a top 20 pick, got hurt. All he did was play his butt off. Ever since then. And so now he becomes one of those guys, to me, like a Bitonio or a Sheriff or a guy that I think can probably get it done at tackle if you need him to, but is probably still projected as a guard. But that was one of my other scouting lessons, Emory. Versatile O-lineman, okay? Think about Landon Dickerson, been a guard. NFC Championship game, they have to move him to center. Never played it in the NFL. But he did in college a little bit. Then you get, for the Chiefs, Joe Tooney, been a guard, left guard. Last few weeks, got to move him to left tackle. And he's playing it in the AFC Championship game. And he gets it done. Versatile offensive lineman, hugely valuable, which is why, for me, I feel like Donovan Jackson made himself a lot of money this season, proving he can play tackle if you need him to.
Yeah, like Zach Streif, or we can go down the line with guys that have, James Hurst, that played tackle, can play guard. Those guys are extremely valuable at the NFL level. And a lot of times when you get to the draft process, it's all projection. Man, okay, we're going to move him down inside the guard, but we really haven't seen him play tackle. Can he play tackle? Well, for Donovan Jackson, this was great for him because we got to actually see him play a separate position in a game. So now you can check that box of, okay, we've seen him do this and seen him do this at a high level. Now we can move forward, and that probably raises his stock because that's less of an unknown for scouts and decision makers to answer.
Yeah, I was really impressed, and I think that to know that you have a guy that you think can maybe be a Pro Bowl guard, but if the need arises, you can bump him out. Logan Mankins, former teammate of mine, same type of guy. I want to get to your any other scouting lessons that you had from yesterday, and they'll be presented by Labatt Blue Light. Drink some Labatt Blue Lights with your friends. Live life to the power of we. Always enjoy responsibly. Beer, Labatt USA, Buffalo, New York. I already kind of said I have another one, but my two biggest ones, all four teams had very mobile quarterbacks. You talk about it all the time, how important that is, and it made a difference for all of them in terms of helping their team move the football. And then the versatile offensive lineman and just how valuable that is. What did I miss, Emory? What jumped out to you?
Well, the quarterbacks, right? Let's say the four quarterbacks, but three of the four, to me, exemplifies or share this same common trait. because Mahomes was questioned during the process. All four were, right? To get it to be clear. People didn't think Mahomes could translate in terms of his play style, and they didn't win at Texas Tech. People didn't think Jayden Daniels, before it became popular to like Jayden Daniels, no one was talking about him except us on this show, that he was a top first-round pick. And so people didn't think he could translate. His style of play couldn't translate. Jalen Hurts, his style, why did he get benched at Bama? Then he goes to Oklahoma. Or was it the scheme? Was it they blamed everything and they didn't, even though he finished second in the Heisman to Joe Burrow, who had an amazing year, and Hurts' numbers were equally as impressive. Joe Burrow just put up a historic year to win the Heisman, right? But the point is, in my scouting report, because Mahomes was my QB. There was I had all three guys tied for the top grade. Mahomes, Watson, and Kaiser, right? Whiffed on Kaiser. But Mahomes and Watson were excellent. I thought Mahomes was going to hit the ground running. Hurts was my QB2 right behind Joe Burrow. People thought I was crazy because that year you had Herbert and Tua. How could you put Hurts QB2? Jaden was obviously my QB2, you remember, last year. And so the in their scouting reports, the main thing it says was, these dudes do not fold under pressure. Ice water in their veins. It's quote unquote the it factor. And if you cannot, a lot of people hate using that term because they can't quantify it. They can't find it. They don't know what it looks like, but you know what it looks like because it seems like when the game gets tighter, the situation gets, a little bit more shaky, those dudes are even killed. And you never feel like they're in a game or out of a game, And those are the type of guys that rise to the occasion. It's why I like Shedeur Sanders, and it's why I like Cam Ward, and it's why I trust those guys to step in day one and be excellent because they have that it factor about them, and they've had it at every stop along the way. So have those guys in the postseason. Now, Josh Allen, you love his athleticism, and you love that he has overcome the shakiness in those clutch moments because the last times they played, it hasn't been because of Josh Allen. They hadn't won the game. So he has done his part. And so when you look at these quarterbacks, that's the most important element of quarterback play is having that it factor. I don't care how tall, how fast, how strong your arm is. If you don't have that it, that's going to be a hindrance to you moving forward in the postseason. That's the one takeaway I had.
The only other one I had, it's a good point. The only other one I had was special teams. The special teams were a pretty big factor in a lot. I don't even know who this Remigio guy is, and he had a huge punt return. You do. You have a scouting report on him from Fresno State. He had a huge punt return. How about Will Shipley going down and rocking Jeremy McNichols to force that fumble? That was huge when that happened. Absolutely gigantic because it was in the last 2 minutes of the first half. Eagles score another touchdown and really put it away. I don't know. You tell me, because we're going to get into the All-Star games now. How much are the guys you're talking to there? How much are they talking about special teams with these guys? How much do they do special teams drills at these All-Star games? Because for a lot of these guys, that's the difference between them making the team or not. And that's also going to be where they need to prove that they can play. I can tell you right now, I think the Eagles will be comfortable with Shipley as their running back 2 next year because of what he's done on special teams and a little bit like he had a good run yesterday. But I think you show that you can make plays on special teams, you get the faith and trust of the coaching staff and the other players. And so I don't think they're going to go pay for a running back. I think they'll have Shipley be their RB2 behind Saquon.
And that ties into the second takeaway based off the Eagles. Don't let these people lie to you. It takes no time to turn a football team around. Washington picked second last year. They were 1 game away from the Super Bowl. Kansas City took Mahomes. They traded up to go get him, and they let go, or they traded Alex Smith and went with Mahomes. Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying? So, and the Philadelphia Eagles, more importantly, shows you the value of the NFL draft. It's the quickest, easiest, cheapest way to turn your team around. I'll do this as we lead up to the Super Bowl. We have 2 weeks. I'll look at both starting lineups, offense and defense, and see where I had each of those starters ranked in my scouting report. because it shows you if you draft good players, your team is going to be good. Will Shipley could be a starter for some team in the NFL, but he's starting as a kickoff returner, and he's also starting as a kickoff coverage guy. And to your point, at the All-Star games, we see them go through drills a lot, and folks here kind of groan like, "Oh, we're wasting time going through All-Star games. We're going to do special teams drills, but look how it manifests itself during the game and during the regular season." But when you look at the Eagles, the second point of the takeaway was you could draft good players, have a plan, and let guys grow into their role. Last year's draft, people thought, "Oh well, Nolan Smith was a waste." Nolan Smith is now a difference maker. Eagles record, I believe, was sacks in the postseason for a single season. And you look at Will Shipley. They got him now, and then they let him groom and develop over the course of the season. Boom, he's an impact player on special teams. You look at what they did with Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. Blankenship was a free agent, then became a starter, and then became a stud. And so this year, Nakobe Dean, last year didn't do too much. This year was an impact starter. So it shows you the draft is where it's at. That's the quickest, cheapest way. And that's why you really have to invest in your scouting department and empower those guys to have a voice, because the Rams, the Eagles, those teams that consistently nail the draft show you should never have a season where you have below 9 wins. That's just bad business all around.
All right, so Emory, let's get into these All-Star games. I think next week we'll kind of preview the Super Bowl. You just laid out there a little bit in terms of where you had these guys ranked, the starters. We'll get into that, and we'll also get your Senior Bowl recap next week, since it's by far the most important All-Star game. But just give me the lay of the land right now. You're still at the Shrine Bowl. How many practices have they had, and then when do you go to the Senior Bowl? Give us your itinerary.
Well, the practice, I've been to 2 practices so far. There's a practice this morning, the last, quote unquote physical practice. Then I fly out this afternoon and go to get ready for Mobile, which and practice starts there Tuesday and goes through Thursday. Then there's the walkthrough Friday and the game on Saturday. So I leave this afternoon after practice to go to Mobile and get ready. But man, just looking at what we saw so far, I have to give credit to these Georgia D linemen, Warren Brinson, Nazir Stackhouse. When you talk about off the bus look, Ross, like it's insane. And I wish, guys I've talked to here, scouts and former players that I'm cool with, we look at these and I'm like, man, I always say, I'm like, man, I wish college players, I don't know if it's a rule or not, but college players or high school recruits can get a chance to go to an NFL practice, training camp, and see what pro bodies look like. See what pro athleticism looks like, because you can automatically see some of these guys. Oh, this is what a defensive tackle at the professional level looks like, and what you have to start to, get your physical body ready for and your play style ready for if you want to make that jump. So watching those guys was impressive, and seeing the small school guys, hold up there in the bargain. Is the offensive lineman. You have the kid from Minnesota, Duluth. And Aiden Williams, outstanding strength, 6'5", 313, came in there, measured really well, and held his own. And Montana State player, Marcus Ware, another guy that came in and did a great job, short, undersized, but held his own at center. And watching him and Cam Miller, the quarterback from North Dakota State, who just finished their seasons up the road in Frisco, here competing in the All-Star game, has been great to see.
Ooh, I love it. That's awesome. And then, so you'll see one more practice this morning, and then you'll be all over the Senior Bowl the next few days. It's interesting, I think, how the Senior Bowl doesn't allow you to just come do the interviews, but the Shrine game does, which I guess is why Shedeur Sanders is there. I don't know if Hunter's there too, but that's why Shedeur Sanders is there. What do you think about that?
Listen, I get it. If you're going to be the top 3 pick, I understand it. I just wondered why they didn't measure. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it was a weight thing, but they didn't measure. But I'm not too concerned about that. He looks about a little bit over 6'1". Looks like he could put on some weight, probably like 210 pounds maybe. So we'll see at the combine how much he weighs. But that's going to be key.
You got to check him out on social media like me at FBall Game Plan. I'm at Ross Tucker NFL. We're at Ross Tucker Pod. Love those of you on YouTube. We're almost there at 20K. YouTube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. The key is footballgameplan.com/2025 draft guide. Just do it now. Reward yourself. Give yourself the gift that will keep on giving for years. Footballgameplan.com/2025 draft guide. The keg is kicked. We are all tapped out.
Thanks for tuning in to College Draft. Make sure to also check out the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Even Money, and Fantasy Feast, all on the DraftKings Network, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.